Welcome to Season 3 of Everything is Learning.
The podcast where we question, explore, and learn on purpose.
We're here to rethink and discover what's possible because learning never stops and neither do we.
Let's dive in.
Welcome back to Season 3 of Everything is Learning. This season, we're turning up the excitement with incredible conversations featuring fascinating learners from all walks of life. These guests will challenge the way you see and live learning. Let's dive in.
Our guest today is Connor Reed. He's a college student. Hi. College student, entrepreneur, social media influencer who's turned his passion for faith and fashion into a clothing brand while all balancing classes and a job. Through TikTok and Instagram, he's built a loyal and growing community by sharing his journey, positive energy, and drive. Connor's story is a testament to the power of curiosity, adaptability, and courage to embrace learning in unconventional ways. As someone who navigates the worlds of education, entrepreneurship, and social media, he brings a unique perspective on ambition, growth, and resilience. Connor embodies the spirit of lifelong learning and personal transformation. His ability to learn, pivot, and thrive amid constant change makes him a perfect guest for our Everything is Learning podcast. Connor, we're so excited to have you here today.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, quick hot take. Connor is our cousin, which makes him equally cool. But we're also so excited because you are a fascinating human. And being so young and having accomplished so much, we're so thrilled to learn how you did it all and how you make it look so effortless. But to start, we like to kick it off with like an icebreaker question.
How did learning play a role in your overall journey? How did you get to where you are today doing all that you're doing? How did you choose your school? What was schooling like for you? Give us kind of your path.
So when I first decided that I was going to go to NAS, it was kind of just thrown at me because I was blessed to be able to get into a program that would make it the most efficient way for me to make it through college. So
okay.
I went to NAS and everything really clicked. I was really blessed to off the bat have great friends like Ali and like my other roommates, and they're like my best friends. So it was great. And throughout my freshman year, I decided I was like, I don't want to do something normal, but I know I don't know if you could say that what I do is any different from, the other creators do, but still, I didn't want to go into an office. I didn't want to do all that stuff.
It just doesn't work for you?
Yeah, it just, I don't know, it just didn't really sit right with me in my mind.
Yeah.
Well,
good for you.
I also think about what you're doing, and I don't necessarily know what your end goal is or what success looks like for you, and I'd love to know that. But the fact that you already have tangible evidence that what you're doing has changed someone's life is pretty cool. I hope that sits deeply with you. Yeah, right.
Well, I wouldn't say that it's me, because I'm just the one who's planting the seeds. It's God who's the one that's making the seed grow.
Said.
Yeah.
Well said.
But it was, so, playing basketball my entire life, that really helped me learn hard work and dedication. And basketball, it didn't pay off the way that I saw it, like I wanted it to, but it did pay off heavily, and now I see that, it gave me this drive and determination to continue with what I'm doing. So, when I decided I was going to start my clothing brand while I was sitting in my room that one night, then I just started drawing stuff, and it kind of led to me starting my brand. And then from my brand, I just started making videos. My videos weren't doing too well at first, but I stayed consistent with it, and I started posting Christian content because I found that really left me fulfilled, and that it really helped my relationship with God. So started posting that, and that's when things started going for me.
Yeah, tell us how. So you talked about how one night you were in your room, and what happened, and tell us a little bit about your clothing brand because not everybody knows.
So I was sitting on TikTok and I saw all this clothing. It was kind of like ideas coming to life, and that was something that I always wanted to do, was make my ideas come to life. Since I was a little kid, I would draw shoes, I would do this and that, and it would never come off the paper. So I was like, I think that now's the time where I want my ideas to come off the paper. So my brand is called Universal Echo. It's a streetwear brand. I'm actually wearing one of the pieces right now. Yeah, everything just started coming together, which it's sort of lifting off the ground a little bit at a time, but I'm being patient with it.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
You also
You need a
talked-
kids line. You need a
Yeah.
kids line.
Give us the kids line, Connor. You also talked about how you started on TikTok, but it didn't really come to fruition right away. And you also talked about how it almost sounded like you find success in fulfillment. Is that true? Am I just reading too far into it? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
I would say at first that was kind of what I found success in, something that would give me that fulfillment. But what I noticed is that nothing really fulfilled me to the point that I really wanted it until I met Jesus, like for real. Like I've always known about Jesus. I've always been in Catholic school. I've always said, oh yeah, trust God with this, trust God with that. But I never really knew him like how I do now. So when
How
I
does
first
Jesus
started,
show up in your life, Connor?
I would say that through the videos, it really like sparked my interest in wanting to learn more. And when I started learning more, that was when I really got to have a chance to meet him for real, like see everything that he has truly done for me and really appreciate what he's done for me and what he wants to do for me throughout my life.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
that is awesome. Do you ever balance, because Marissa and I talk about this a lot, we're like, listen, it's we're not doing the podcast because we like the sound of our own voice. We're doing the podcast because we want to help people, but sometimes that could really come off in a way where it's like this balance of, are we being conceited or are we trying to share knowledge? Is it coming off genuine? Like, how did you work through that? Did you ever experience that? And like, what does that learning curve look like for you?
So I would say that, throughout my journey, I definitely have struggled with a little bit of pride here and there. And that's something that I've really had to, pray on and really work on and, do things that would help me to become more humble. I think a great example of that is fasting. I think a great example of that is serving and just following Jesus. Because you look at God, and he humbled himself into a servant to us humans who were the ones who were, doing all this wrong. And he calls us to be just like him. So looking at what he did for me, serving and doing other things to kind of get past it, that's been what's helped me through it. And sometimes those prideful thoughts of, oh, this video didn't get this much, but immediately, that's something that I just got to cast out of my mind. Because if you sit on it for too long, that's when, you're going to think, okay, am I doing this for the validation, or am I doing this because I want to help people or I want to serve God or stuff like that? So just keeping that in your mind and making sure that you're doing things that keep you on that lower level, because I look at myself, I'm still a human at the end of the day. I'm nothing above a human being. Like I look at everybody as the same as me, and I try to actually look at them to the best of my ability as above me, because I want to love people more than myself.
Yeah, I love that.
What would you say, given everything that you just talked about, what would you say your biggest learning or biggest takeaway has been from this process?
I would say that, so there's this verse, and it talks about how Jesus, he was obedient. Even though he was God, he took a role of obedience. And I'd say that, realizing that I need to also take that role of obedience has really helped me through my journey. That's the biggest thing that I've learned, because this journey is not about me. It's never been about me. And I wanted to get that through my own head, because, our biggest enemy is truly ourselves and what we want. Like, or not what we want, but the desires that can stop us from truly reaching our goals.
Yeah.
Limiting your own potential, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course I know that there's like temptations and stuff, but that's still really a fight of you versus you.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I guess it doesn't sound like you've failed a lot. Is there is there a time, like, at any age that you can remember where you feel like you failed and you appreciate it? Because we talk a lot about reframing things on our podcast. Like, we talk a lot about, like, if you have a positive relationship with failure and you view failure as growth, it's not easy for everybody to do. And it's certainly something that Marissa and I have had to unlearn. But do you remember a particular age where you felt like, oh, I failed at something? Do you remember a moment?
So throughout my entire journey of even in basketball, I would always look at when I would fall short as, okay, so fail, FAIL, first attempt in learning. So
Oh, I love that. I have not heard that before.
so every single time I would fall short, I would use that as an opportunity to grow even more. So what I've learned, something insane, is God takes our shortcomings, right? And he uses it as a building block to get us to the point that we're going to get to. Because, even though we may fall short, he doesn't fall short, and he can use that shortcoming to build you up. So,
Love that.
I try to
That's
not
amazing.
look, so I try, of course, to learn from my shortcomings because that's a part of the building process. But I try not to, dwell too much on it and say, oh, I really failed there, because I'm learning. It's a process. And if I say, oh, I failed there, I could have regrets. And that's not something that I want to have because I can't go back there. I can't go back to the past. I can only focus on what I'm doing right now. And I can only focus on my plan for the future. And if my plan for the future doesn't go according to my plan, then that's okay too. It's not a failure. It's just me learning and me building.
That actually speaks a lot to. So, as you were talking about how you came about to Nazareth and it being an efficient way, I was thinking about my own journey to college and how I was not as mature or eloquent as you. I really wanted to go to Villanova. And had I gone to Villanova, I would not have the life that I do now. Like, I would never have gone to Cleveland. I would never have met my husband. I would not have the beautiful children that I do. And I think about that because God had a better plan. And I'm really grateful it panned out that way. But let me tell you, I cried hard when I was rejected. Yeah, because it was, I guess rejection is also not failure. It's like there's a different path for you to take, but I at that point could not see that. And I still struggle a lot with I'm very type A and like to have things planned out and like to be in control or feel in control of the situation, which I know is contradictory to what God's plan is, probably asking of me. And I'm sure you've heard the God laughs when you make plans comment or phrase before. But the reality is I like to try and be prepared because I know there's other people counting on me. And that's kind of like the following that you built. There's people counting on you. And I understand that they're really counting on God, but like through the messages that you're bringing and the positivity that you're bringing. So the fact that you're talking about failure as just another opportunity is pretty amazing. And the positive psychology and thoughts that you're bringing also make, I feel like you're attracting positive energy to you because you're choosing to see life that way. And I would love to hear, if you're comfortable talking about it, share about how you're actually leaving the country for a while. And can you talk to me about what you're looking forward to there, what you're hoping to learn or take away from that experience, and let our listeners know where you're going, because I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. But before I do answer that question, I want to go back to what you were talking about with your process of, going through everything and moving on.
Sure.
And like with, when plans don't go accordingly, it can really hurt. And it's nothing that, God would be like, "Oh, you should have done this." Like, God is not, like, he's not petty. He is all loving. So,
Good point.
even though you felt that way, it's perfectly okay, because there have been plenty of times where things didn't go my way, and I would be sad too. And there's nothing wrong with being sad, but after that process of being sad, that's when he wants you to get back up, and you did that, and that's what matters.
Thanks.
That's good.
I just got to stop you for a second, Connor, because I think I think hearing from a young man who is so successful that it is okay for other, not just women, not just like the he's, the she's, the they's, everyone, that it is okay. And that coming from you as a young man is such a powerful statement. And it teaches other people that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be sad. You can sit in it alone, or you can choose to sit in it with whomever or whatever you believe in. In this framework, like, we are all Christians, like, we sit in it with God. And sometimes we're ignorant and we sit in it alone. But I just wanted to say, like, I cannot wait to show my sons this episode, because I want them to hear from someone else, a man in particular, that it is okay to not be okay. It's so powerful. And not just as a mother, but as like a female, I cannot thank you enough for saying that to our listeners and to us. Like, massive thank you.
And not to stay in it. Right?
Absolutely.
Just stay in that place. So
right.
But yeah, but tell us about your next journey.
For sure. So I'm going to Australia this semester. I'm leaving on the 16th, and I'm looking so forward to it. I'm going to Brisbane for a semester to study abroad. And honestly, that's really all I have.
Well, why did you choose Australia, and what are you studying?
So my girlfriend and I, we wanted to study abroad together, and we were originally going to go to Spain. I took Spanish class and stuff like that. But then, after 2 semesters of Spanish class, we looked at each other. We were like, we don't know Spanish, so we're not going to Spain. So we started looking at other places, and Australia, they speak English. So, so we were like, I mean, that's a really cool place. We both want to go there, so let's do it. And I'm studying sports and entertainment management. I've not really been focusing on the sports side too much. I honestly haven't really even touched the basketball in a while, but that's okay. I'm focused more on the entertainment side, as well as, marketing, just creative stuff. I really enjoy that. I really enjoy that kind of thing. I really enjoy it.
And you're not the only creative in your family either, are you? Right?
No, absolutely not. My brother, Garrett, he makes music. My mom has an advertising agency. My dad, he's always thinking of new things. I feel like it definitely runs in the blood.
That's awesome. Very cool. What are you most looking forward to when you guys get to Australia?
Honestly, seeing how I adapt to a new environment, because I've never really done that before. I go to school 20 minutes away from my house, and now I'm gonna be in the down under, so it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to it, though.
That's awesome.
I applaud your bravery, because anything with too many legs or too few legs is not for me. And what I know about Australia is that they have like 30 of those most deadly creatures. So watch your back.
Yep,
But have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm interested in, so this has been a journey to get here. So who's helped shape your journey along the way? You've talked a lot about God, so I'm sure he's there, Jesus. But beyond those, who else has got you to where you've gotten?
I would definitely say my parents. They've helped me so much along this way. Like, I'm so grateful for both of my parents, that they've given me ideas. They've helped me through things where I was stumped. And, I say especially with marketing, my mom has a lot of great ideas, and we like to kind of bounce our ideas off of each other. And that's really helped me. I think both their drives to continue with what they're doing, that's been such an inspiration to me. It's really shown me what it means to work hard, and it shows me what I need to do, and if I want to get to the points that I want to get to. So yeah.
That's awesome.
I often think about, like, what's something that people in a situation where they have supports, like, I guess what I'm getting at is, I think about people who don't have support, right? And how can creatives who don't have a lot of support find community? Because we talk a lot about community on the podcast, and we talk about how important it is. And I think it's so amazing to have people that you can, what I'm hearing from you is, you can be vulnerable with your parents, and you can be creative with your parents. And that's when people shine, right? That's when like our brains get excited. That's when our learning happens and we try things and we feel like someone's going to catch us. Like, what would you say as a creative, and knowing other people who don't have that support, how can you create that support if you don't have it?
I would say putting yourself out there is huge. Yesterday I went to a Bible study, and it's so amazing how Bible studies, it's like everybody talks about what they found, and it's like you're just learning new things and you're becoming more comfortable, and people who didn't want to talk before are talking, and it's amazing. So really putting yourself out there and getting into some sort of group, whether it's a club, whether it's a community like the Bible study, anything. Even when you're at school, just putting yourself out there to talk to others, because we can't do this on our own. No matter how much we want to try to do this on our own, God gave Adam Eve for a reason. We just like how he gave us community. We thrive in groups.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's so true. I just also, by the way, I keep hearing you, like when you didn't just say Naz, but I keep thinking about how ironic it is that you talk about Jesus and it's Jesus of Nazareth and you have a Naz. I can't stop putting that in my head. It keeps coming up. You're talking a lot about what you've learned. Is there anything that you've like unlearned recently, or that you're in the process of kind of working through, not only as like a creative, but just as like a human being in college? You're at this like really formative time in your life. You're about to go on this really big adventure. Like, what are you unlearning right now?
That we can't always be comfortable. That in order to grow, you have to be uncomfortable in certain situations.
Yeah.
And eventually you will be comfortable in those uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
Right. If you don't practice it, you can't get better at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, given what you just said about unlearning and learning, I see you as a learning mentor for a lot of people. Whether you would qualify yourself as that or not, I guess my first question is, do you see yourself as a learning mentor? And then what does being a learning mentor, whether you want to accept that title or not, what is it that you're hoping to instill to folks as that person, as in that role?
Honestly, so a learning mentor, I don't know if I'd consider myself that. Maybe people would consider me that, but personally, I think that we're all learning mentors, because you have knowledge that I don't have, and I may have knowledge that you don't have. And
For sure.
so I guess we could all be learning mentors in our own way. Like how, there are definitely things that come to me or from, this, or from, the wisdom that God gives to me. And I spread that to other people, so that could be a time where I am one. But then, like how you guys teach people as well. So as parents, I would say that you guys are definitely learning mentors. And how, I guess I'm gonna flip the question on you guys now, because that's really all I have. I don't really know.
I think that's so humble of you. I know you talked a little bit about humility playing a role in your life, but I think that's so humble of you. And I also want to challenge you to think about yourself as a learning mentor, because just like you said, you have knowledge that none of us do, and you have a perspective that none of us do. For me as a learning mentor, I actually take the role, I'm going to use it in a more literal sense. Parenthood, like you were saying, is a big role. And I think about how I've met your parents. They're amazing people. You've met my parents. I also think they're amazing people. There are great things about them, and there are qualities that, like you said, shortcomings that God has learned to use as building blocks for other things. So I try and take the best qualities of them that I have, and I try to apply that to my own parenthood, because they've been learning mentors for me, and I know now I'm a learning mentor for my children. I also think about myself in like the role of a sibling or a spouse. And then even at work, I'm definitely not the most experienced person, but I'm definitely not the newest either. So as far as my role as a learning mentor, I really think about it from the perspective of, I don't know what people want to learn, but I do know what I know, and only what I know. So if they come to me with questions, I'm happy to share. I ask a lot of questions because I'm happy to learn. So when I think about how that applies to my role as a parent, I want my children to want to learn, to want to be curious, to want to do all of the things that they want to be able to do. And I think about how do I enable or provide access to them for them to be successful. And I think like for you and what you're doing is providing people access to scripture that was written a really long time ago that is very difficult to interpret in a way that is tangible and meaningful for the youth of today or people existing in today. So I'm happy to pass it on to Elena because I'd love to know her thoughts as well.
Yeah. So Marissa kind of has a little bit of background on this, but Connor, you basically gave the definition of learning mentor perfectly, which I don't even know that you've heard on the podcast, but this concept of every single human being on the planet is a learning mentor, and every single human being on the planet is a learner. And that's kind of where the podcast started. So for me, I think there's this unspoken pressure that also keeps me humble in the sense of like, I know that everyone is a learning mentor, but sometimes it's hard to see myself that way because I also know what that means. Like, but it also keeps me learning. It keeps me curious. It's like, okay, one of my clients the other day was talking about college and how they're feeling so much pressure to choose the right one. And society tells them that this school is better than this school, but this school they like better because it fits who they are. And there's this piece where I'm like, okay, like I want to do whatever's best for you. I want you to want that for yourself. But as a learning mentor, I have to present you with the facts and not with my opinion. And that's where I feel like there's this really big sense of and challenge of where does that fit? Like, where do my opinions fit versus how I can continue to help you grow and you be curious and you figure things out. So I think one thing that Marissa also said was about questioning and encouraging the curiosity. I think a lot of times, and Connor, maybe you can say this because I'm not currently in classes. I'm like teaching people, but I'm not in, a college classroom anymore. When you're in a class and you hear people asking questions, I think in classrooms, people don't feel as threatened when people ask questions. But I do feel like out in society, if you ask questions, people are immediately like on top of you. And they're like, oh, it's almost like people get threatened. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, have you experienced that at all on like social media or I don't know, in a classroom? Like, where have you maybe experienced that or maybe you haven't? Tell us a little bit about that.
I feel like it really depends on the person. And, I'd say both sides, it does take a sense of humility to ask a question. It definitely takes a sense of humility because you're admitting that you don't know something. And then answering the question, if you don't know the answer to it, that's okay. Which, that is also, it's okay to say that you don't know. But, sometimes when we don't know the answer, we could get defensive, and we could be like, oh, well, this, and that. But, I think that I haven't seen it as much lately. I started working at Walgreens for a little bit before I had to leave. And,
Nice.
Everybody that I've asked questions to, it seems like they're okay with me asking questions. I guess could you like describe maybe a certain setting that I would find this?
Yeah, I think right now with today's like politics, I often ask a question instead of making a statement. Like, why do you agree with that? Or did you hear this part of whatever policy? And sometimes when people already know that the answer feels like a bit of a setup, which is not intentional. It's just like, I'm curious, like, do you have this piece of information or what is it that you'd like to share with me that maybe I'm not understanding? I feel like right now the political climate is a place where I see it. I think sometimes in a situation where, like Marissa and I actually did our master's degrees together. And sometimes we would ask a lot of questions in class, Marissa far more than anyone else, because she's just a curious learner and she She ended up getting the answers for all of us in the class because she would just ask questions. But sometimes to some people, questions can feel really threatening. And I find that particularly when I ask people of an older generation, it seems to be something where people get really like antsy about. I don't know. Marissa, do you know what I'm talking about? Like,
Yeah, I do, because I don't think just generationally, I think the habit was I tell you what to do and you do it. And in today, I think we've become more accustomed to finding the reasons why, the purpose to get background, context, and in the best or safest way, try and challenge when something feels inauthentic to ourselves. So that can be a lot of, like, Connor, as soon as you asked that question, I thought of like a Thanksgiving dinner. I think your family is a lot more functional and probably enjoys the holidays more so than others. But I can, knowing some members of the older generation of our family, imagine them all around a table for a holiday. They don't all have the same ideals. Starting to ask questions about that might turn up some feelings. And that is where I think Elena, that's probably the best example of what I think Elena's talking about, as people feeling challenged about questioning.
Yeah, then I would definitely say in religious talks, when someone asks, like, for instance, there are many people, when someone asks them, why is Jesus God, they could get a little bit worked up. Or, when someone asks, or like, let's say that I ask somebody, like, why do you think Muhammad is credible? Something like that. Like, that's a perfectly fine question, but it can spark feelings. Or, I feel like that's definitely where I see it the most.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I feel like people get very protective of something that is a core value to them. Maybe that's more what I was getting at. I don't think I've ever thought of it that way, though. So thank you, Connor, for inspiring me to think like that. But yeah, like if you think about your core values, I guess, Connor, if you had 3 core values to share with us and our listeners, what would your 3 core values be?
I would say determination. I would say love and faith.
Love that. What about you, Meme?
I'm going to steal love.
Yeah.
And then actually accountability and consistency.
Ooh, okay. Yeah,
How about you?
I think love, vulnerability, and learning. I think nowadays people are not vulnerable enough. And I think, Connor, one thing that I'm kind of picking up from the lessons that you're kind of teaching us here is you seem to be around people who are willing to be vulnerable. And I kind of wonder if you make it a safe space for people. Do you think that maybe that's something that you do, whether intentional or not intentional?
I definitely try my best to make people comfortable around me, because everybody deserves to have a companion that they can feel comfortable around. And, going back to vulnerability, I like to make it known that it's okay. Like, it's perfectly fine. Jesus cried. There's literally a verse that says Jesus wept.
Jesus wept. Yep.
Yeah. And, if God could cry, then you could cry too. That's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
I actually saw a video the other day, and Elena, I'll try and find it so we can tag it in our social media, but it was a woman talking about how, is God broken, right? And the answer is no, right? So God made you. Are you broken? No, because you're in the image of God. What is broken is the strategy. So just like you had said, it isn't that God hates the sinner, he hates the sin. Or God, you aren't broken. The actions that you use to do with the free will and the world around you, that's what's broken. And because God made us in our likeness, that we have to rethink about, it's not necessarily you that's broken, it's the summation of things that have happened to you or you've done. And I thought that was such a powerful way to reframe what I understood, because I think the message has always been, like a person has experienced trauma, so that trauma breaks a person. But if you think about it, it's the strategy around it. And to your point, you can influence someone else's free will, whether that's your intention or not. And I really like that you were able to understand that a decision that you make has ramifications on other people. Because a lot of times I think decisions are made in isolation and not like who all is going to be impacted by this. And I think that if more people took the time to think about who is impacted by these decisions, sometimes they might make a different one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did have, I'm interested though, because you're in a current state of learning and will be as you go and study abroad. If you could give a piece of advice to lifelong learners, what would it be?
I would say, don't be afraid to ask questions, because, questions are how you get answers.
That speaks to, I know we
know
talk
it's
about
very-
core values, but that speaks to me and my core. Thank you. But given that this has been an amazing discussion, and I know we could take days of your time, but I definitely want to make sure to talk through a few things in regards to like you and where people can find you. So I'm curious to know though, is there anything that you've always wanted to learn but haven't had the chance yet to explore?
I would say that there's a whole lot of stuff in this world that I do want to learn more about. I would say definitely, my faith. That's definitely something that I always want to learn more about. I would say just learning about different parts of the world and how, their cultures affect or, help build up who they are as individuals. I think that's something that I definitely want to learn more about.
That's
I love
great.
that humanistic point of view. Yeah. And I guess what are you hoping comes out of like the next year? Or like what are your potential hypothetical long-term plans right now with your clothing brand and your social media influence, and even after college? Like, do you have any ideas of what that looks like or what you're hopeful for?
I would say I hope that I can continue spreading the gospel throughout social media. I really enjoy doing that because we're so blessed to have that opportunity to spread the word of God to millions of people by making a 5-minute video. Like Paul had to travel or write letters to these different groups of people, and I think we're so blessed. Like from just using this, I can talk to somebody who's on the other side of the world.
Right.
So I definitely want to continue with that. My clothing brand, I do hope that continues to grow. I mean, that would be pretty amazing. I want to continue to do new drops, continue to take my ideas off the paper and put it into something that you could wear. I think that's something that I definitely want to do. But after college, I guess I just got to keep being patient with whatever God's plan is. Just keep seeing the different doors that open, because I know that He'll open doors. There's a great verse. It's Romans chapter 8, verse 28. It says, "For we know that God works for the good of those who love God and are according to His purpose for them." So He will work for the good of all of us. And when we put our faith in Him, doors will open, and He will always, always provide.
Love that. Love that.
Hope that
so much.
something comes of this conversation too. I hope this helps open up a door for you. One question that we do or intend to ask all of our guests is, what's one question you wish more people would ask you?
Why does Jesus love me? I'd say that's a great.
Do you have any thoughts about answering that question?
Well, Jesus loves you, all of us, because He made us in His image, and He loves us because He created us. Think about it. When He went up to that cross, when He took up that cross, He had each of us individually, not as a group, not, oh yeah, I'm dying for that group of people over there, but individually. He had Connor. He had him in His mind. And that's something that is truly amazing. And the greatest act of love is giving up your life for a friend. And He did that. And He calls us His friends when we follow Him.
Love that. It's been so amazing having you here, Connor. Thanks so much for joining us. A big thank you for our listeners. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to make sure to include all of Connor's information below the video. Be sure to follow and stay tuned for our next amazing guests on Everything is Learning, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again,
All right,
Connor.
guys. See you later. Thank you for having
Great
me.
to see you.
Yeah.
Bye.
That's a wrap for this episode of Everything is Learning. If you loved this episode, share it, subscribe, and let's keep the conversation going.
Stay curious and keep learning. We'll catch you next time.